Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast, where we talk about all things sustainable fat loss. We take people on 90-day journeys to creating fat loss forever. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome back to the Breaking 90 podcast. I am your host today, Kelly Sarlo, here with my amazing co-host, Jerrika Rydell. How are you, girl?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Good. What's new in your world?
Nothing super crazy. I was like, what kind of story should I tell Kelly today? But honestly, I haven't been doing anything crazy, and I've just been loving these fall colors. I'm spending so much time outside. It is so refreshing. I'm ready for colder weather, and I never in a million years thought I'd say this, but I think being pregnant, like I can't tolerate the heat. So these like cool mornings and the nice colors outside has just been a game changer. I've been spending way more time outside.
That's awesome.
Refreshing. Yeah, I feel really good.
And you deserve the peace that you're talking about in your life.
Yes. Yeah. And it was sad because I barely wanted to be outside this summer because it was just too I couldn't tolerate it. So, and that is the polar opposite. If for those listening, if you know me, I'm like a 40-degree sunshine, lay in the sun all day type of person. So it's been really weird.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
What do you have for us today?
Okay, so it's time that we talk about Halloween or whatever we celebrate surrounding candy. I think what's important here is just like the mindset around Halloween. And I know to some that might be obvious, but I think it's worth chatting about on this podcast. We've actually never brought it up. I look back 2 years and it's never been a topic of conversation. So I'm thinking maybe like ways to feel in control this Halloween, and we'll just kind of rhyme off some points, and whatever number we get to, we get to.
Sure. So surrounding mindset, or also surrounding tips and tools to
tips and tools to feel in control. You can pull out some mindset components to get people thinking. Like just we'll have a conversation about it. I think it's time.
Sure. Start us off.
Awesome. So I just wanted to like throw a point out there. So when Halloween or any holiday sort of rolls around, right? We as coaches, we never want you to feel like you can't enjoy it, especially something like that comes once a year. Like it's not something that's happening once a week where we should really start planning a little bit better. It happens once a year. So all of the things that you'll find, at least my points that I kind of had written down, I know Kelly has nothing prepared. So, but some of the points I thought of are just about navigating around still enjoying this moment. Like I want you to still enjoy the treats or whatever you do in the festivities. And this can apply for any holiday, what we're about to talk about today. But it happens once a year. So cut yourself some slack, enjoy it, and move on sort of thing. And it's kind of all about that bounce back ability. And I think there's a whole podcast kind of talking about events where how to bounce back after an event and how we can get back to our consistency. So if that's something that you're struggling with, maybe check that one out. But I just kind of want to preface that by saying it's a once a year type holiday. So, but we'll help you navigate it if you're feeling a little anxious about it.
Cool. Can I go?
Yeah, let's do it.
This comes from years of experience. One of the things that never crossed my mind and was a complete revolution for me, or revelation, I guess, both, was throwing out the candies that I didn't like. So especially just having been a trick-or-treater in the past and now having little nieces and nephews going trick-or-treating, everything that comes into your home is not your responsibility to consume. And I think a lot of people in great cultures that don't want to waste, which is super fair, we forget that we can sort through and actually decide what we don't want to keep and what we might not want to consume. Because if you do really want to still enjoy your treats, like you just talked about, we don't have to consume everything that comes in. So maybe even putting aside a pile, talking to whoever's in the family, like, what do you love? What do you want to keep? And let's take the rest and regift it. Let's take the rest and, bring it into an office and put it on a, in a candy dish for that office to enjoy, instead of thinking that it's all or nothing. Right.
That's so funny you put that as number one, because my number one was be choosy. Like, Don't just eat the Tootsie Roll because it's sitting there in a dish and that's the only thing that's there. I hate Tootsie Rolls, and I've been there. I would grab the Tootsie Roll and just eat it because it's in a dish in front of you, like you mentioned. So just be choosy. Like I mentioned, It's something we don't need to deprive ourselves of. This once in a year holiday type thing. So if you want the candy, pick the candy you actually will enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. Do you want to go back and forth?
Sure. Another one that I have in my mind is being mindful. And we talk about this anytime we talk really nutrition, and it's just about whatever you're choosing to consume, right? Sitting down and tasting your food. And I can't tell you how many times around Halloween, especially, the week after when there is the abundance kind of sitting in your cupboard, I'll actually make my lunch. So I'll take my protein, I'll make my salad, and I'll dump a bag of chips on my plate. Like that is what I'm putting in part of my lunch. But what's important here is I'm putting it on my plate as one serving. Maybe I'm making it fit into my points or my calories, however you're tracking, or I'm choosing to just, that is my plate. Sometimes people track with the protein being a third of the plate or vegetables being half, or however you divide it. So just the fact that I'm being mindful and choosing to put it on my plate rather than just picking out of the large bag that my kids got or whatever. It's just one of my favorite tips to just take the bag of Reese's Pieces, which are my favorite, and actually put it in a bowl, right? Instead of, you don't even know how many wrappers you may have just grabbed, opened, and consumed. So it's just about being mindful in that aspect, and then being mindful that you're actually tasting it. Like these little candies go down so fast, and you might not even fully bite one in half before it's down the hatch. And then you have to ask yourself, like, well, why am I choosing to eat this if I'm not thoroughly tasting it? Because it's about the taste buds and sitting down and enjoying it.
Yeah, I love that. So you're talking about fully enjoying it. You're also talking about portion controlling it. And I might just be rewording what you're saying. I'm not really sure, but my brain works in terms of function, whether it's choosing how you're going to dress in the morning, how you're going to decorate a room, or how you're going to consume your Halloween treats. It's like, what function is this thing in my life serving? So as you mentioned, like, okay, this is going to be a part of my dinner. So it's going to go on my plate. The function of these chips is going to be part of this meal. Are you looking at, 3 mini little Mars bars that I would have absolutely chosen and decided that this is my after dinner treat, right? So
Right.
Where in your day is it serving its function, purpose, or pleasure, right? This goes back to one of our guiding principles, and letting it be just that. And that's not to say that you're to create structures and rules around it that you're going to want to end up rebelling against. But if you know when you're wanting to consume it and the function that it's serving, then you're less likely to go back, like you said, and keep picking and not know how many wrappers you've gone throughout the day.
Right. And this can certainly be something that fits into your lifestyle, right? Like you mentioned, you already know that you're going to enjoy a treat after supper or dinner. That's something you typically add into your life. It's like, okay, well, the 2 mini Mars bars fits. And it's just something that you can pre-plan for and feel good about.
Yeah. And I think, we do this intuitively for our children when we are figuring out how to regulate their systems and their nutrition, because that's what we're responsible for. So we say, I'm going to pack a bag of chips in your lunch today from Halloween. Or, when they say to you, can I have another chocolate bar? And you're like, nope, we've already done that. We've already taken from that stash. You're creating these really great regulations for your kids. We can create something very similar for ourselves.
Such a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because I find when we make statements or put things into perspective, and for these are women especially that listen to this podcast, and we use their kids, like it changes the way our brains think about situations. So that's awesome. Thanks for bringing that up.
Mm-hmm. Back to you.
Okay, so this one's, I think, a little bit obvious, but nothing that's obvious should be left unsaid. So controlling what we can. So this is kind of that all or nothing mentality that we talk about over and over again on these podcasts. But just because you had 2 chocolates for breakfast with your coffee, something I would do, doesn't mean that you have to blow the rest of your day, right? And now your lunch and your dinner and everything else throughout your day is just filled with candies and chocolates. And this kind of goes back to what we just talked about, but it's just avoiding that all or nothing mentality, pre-planning, and just control what I can throughout my day. Well, I'm controlling, maybe I didn't control the fact that I chose those 2 chocolates for breakfast. It was out of what I thought was my plan. But lunch comes around, I can still control getting my hydration in. I can control eating the meal prep that I pre-made yesterday, things in that nature.
I love that. My next one is freeze it. I don't think a lot of people think about this one.
No, no.
Chips are fucking delicious when they are frozen. Okay. Let me
I've
put
never
that out
tried
there.
it. Come on.
Blew my mind. My ex-in-laws used to freeze chips and I thought they were crazy until they were like, yeah, just like reach in and try it. So, so good. But I'm also saying freeze it because chocolate freezes well, right? Our desserts freeze well. So if this is something where you're like, look, I've portioned out, a week or two of snacks, I'm going to put the rest in the freezer and pull it out in November or pull it out in December or whatever. Like these things keep well, including cheesies, right? Not necessarily the candies themselves, more so chocolate and chips, but it's an option. We don't have to waste. We can save it for later. And out of sight, out of mind can sometimes be a great thing until you're like, I'm feeling a little peckish and I want to treat myself. Well, it's in the freezer.
That's a good point. And you forget about it too until, like you said, it rolls around. You also mentioned pre-portioning for the week. So this is kind of another sort of tip in the sense that if you wanted to, you can take 7 small containers and put the amount of candies, chocolate, etc., that you feel is appropriate for that day. Because again, you can enjoy these things without feeling like they can be part of your life, and you might have done the same for your kids' lunch, like you mentioned earlier. 5 or 7 little pre-portioned snacks for them. Do the same for yourself. So it kind of just applies to kind of what you just said.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Awesome.
Do you have any more?
I have 2.5. So, so this one is a little bit, maybe it's controversial. I don't know, but there's I would say upgrade your candy. And this is kind of like a ... if you want. So to be clear, candy is candy, right? There's carbs and calories but there's some options out there. And if this is something that's important to you, right, you can find candies that have less dyes or less additives or different types of sugar alternatives. If, the natural form is more important to you, there's options out there. If that is something that you strive for, maybe for your children or for you. Again, we talked about once a year, if we are over consuming a little bit of these things, we do believe in moderation, and that's great. But if this is something you'll be enjoying for a large portion of the following month, then maybe tying in half the bag could be your normal candies and half the bag might be a little bit of a healthier fruit snack alternative or something in that nature.
Very cool. Okay. So I have a question too, because I think there could be different tips and tricks for parents because I'm assuming this is a parents thing, although I shouldn't, I guess, because they could be buying candy just to hand it out, right?
Yeah, like I mean, my kid's not here yet, but I definitely stacked some for the kids that come to my house.
That's funny. I'm the jerk that turns my lights out.
Yeah, I was that, but I'm like, we need to start something new this year because we need to be these people that like Halloween. We're gonna have a kid.
Yeah, okay, fair. Okay, so here's kind of some more fun that I think people could have if they have children, and that's the reason that you've got candy in your house still. Because if you don't have kids, like you could just give it all away if you really wanted to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is part of that portion control that you were talking about. You could actually say to your kids who can conceptualize, what you're sort of doing with it. They're not, you don't look like you're just taking their stash. You could say like, hey, we're going to do, a little treasure hunt with it. So pick your 5 favorites. I'm going to put the rest away and I'm going to hide them around the house and make another game of it, basically, where it's something fun. It's a little bit of a distraction action if we're talking about the psychology of things, because it makes it more engaging with their stuff instead of just grabbing it and going. You can portion control it to say, grab this many, let's do something fun with it. You can have this for the next couple days. And again, they're learning portion control as well.
Love it. Yeah, I think that parents listening will just love the random points that we're having thrown out, and it will be really helpful. And that can go obviously with any game or any sort of thing you want to apply it to. But no, I love it. Mine's kind of a different direction. So leaving the guilt behind. So this is kind of like a tie-in, obviously. So guilt is not an ingredient in our candies. It's not an ingredient in Halloween. So it's just feeling guilty about candy. Eating candy doesn't really change what occurred and what can actually make you feel worse in the end, right? So instead of judging yourself, like if you overdo it, just like be curious, be honest with yourself, maybe ask yourself a few questions, be like, why am I eating the abundance of candy? Is it because I didn't have breakfast this morning, so now I'm overindulging? Or why am I eating out of the bag on the couch? Just instead of just doing the action, actually take time to ask yourself why you're doing the action, because it can kind of, make you look at the situation in a different light and not be so hard on yourself, not make yourself feel so guilty about what you just did, rather than you can like learn from it.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
A little more preparation for the next time this rolls around.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. I'll also
Awesome.
say too, if you've got kiddos that are super young and can't really understand or hold in memory how much they just collected, this can be a really easy thing to hide, to give away, to save for a piñata later in the year. Like
I love that one.
we can repurpose the candy and the chocolate, and it can also, I think I mentioned this in another one of the tips, we can also regift it, right? I remember as a teenager, I don't know if you were into this, but like candles at some point were like a huge thing. And like there was just candles everywhere at that store called Claire's. Anyway, I would get a really nice candle for one of my friends, and then I would like surround it with a bunch of candy and just wrap it in cellophane. And it was just a really nice, fun gift to hand off to someone. So I think it can be something that's repurposed as well. It doesn't have to be, again, your responsibility.
No, I agree. It's true. It's so true. It seems so simple, and like you mentioned at the beginning, to some it's really hard because they may not be a waste, they might be a waste conscious family, but at the end of the day, if you're not throwing it out, at least you're repurposing it. And this could be a really good kind of change in mindset for some people that struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the last half point I had, I only call it a half point because it's kind of a tie-in, is just enjoy it. Honestly, allow some room for fun. And like I mentioned at the beginning, just think about maybe our topic of minimizing the damages, in the sense that just try not to let this 1-2 day sort of enjoy in time that you enjoy all this candy turn into a whole November of trying to eat the rest of the food, right? So we're just trying to minimize the damages, allow yourself to enjoy it, but then get back on track whenever that time kind of comes, or whatever your plan is, but have a plan.
Yeah, I love that. That was a really punchy one, and I kind of want to end with it, but I do have another one.
Love it. This is great.
Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
It's along the lines of repurposing. And I was going to say, if you are someone who enjoys baking, or your kid enjoys baking, bake with it. Like if you have a collection of those mini Mars bars, or you have a collection of the Reese's Pieces, like can you bake a batch of something where multiple items are being used in one batch, right? And then send it to a classroom, send it to an office, give it away, or freeze the baking itself, right? So wrappers are gone, items are now in one bowl or one batch, and it's a little bit less, if that makes sense.
I actually did that last year. My mom's birthday's in November, and I took all like the chocolate bar, Reese's, all those, and I made an ice cream cake.
Yeah.
And just like sprinkled chocolate bars, stuck it all around, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. That's a great topic.
Yeah, I just think it's a lighthearted, but just something that's worth bringing up for a lot of people that have a little bit of anxiety around the time, especially if they're in the middle of some, serious hard work in their health and fitness.
Cool. I love that. So I know that this topic was full of tips. Would you still like to leave us with a tip today?
Yeah, I'm going to change kind of the route a little bit, kind of circle it back a little bit to my opening topic of just being outside a little bit more. So my challenge or my tip is to, every season, this is something we've started, to try something new, one thing new in nutrition and one thing new in activity. This just started kind of recently. We just kind of started talking about it, but yeah, try a new food. There's a lot of foods that come out in the fall that I don't typically eat, different vegetables. So we're going to try cook with a new piece of food item, and then go try a different activity. By the end of the year, that's 4 new sports or forms of activity that you may have fallen in love with at least one of, and that could dictate like a really big change in your life moving forward.
That's huge. I love it.
Also, was that you treetop trekking?
Heck yeah.
Yeah, that sparked the conversation to go try something like that next.
I love it.
Awesome.
Cool. Thank you for the topic today. That's great. And thank you to everyone who is listening. If you can do us a big favor and subscribe to the podcast, as well as share the episode, you can screenshot it, share it to Instagram, share it to Facebook. That helps us boost listeners and followers. And we can spread these wonderful messages to people who are looking for these health, fitness tips. Have a beautiful day.